Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist, nomadcapitalist.com, here in the streets of Tbilisi, Georgia, where I'm just walking around, walking to my home that I maintain here after a busy day of meeting with some folks, and wanted to answer a question that if you're nomadic, you've probably been asked before as well. I've met a lot of our readers, a lot of our viewers on the streets of Tbilisi, of Yerevan, of Kuala Lumpur, of other cities who have come up to me. And some folks, if they see me in the street, almost seem bewildered. It's different at a mall, it's different at an event, but on the street, people often seem bewildered. I remember one guy finally asked me this question. He said, if you're a successful guy, why don't you have a car? Now, it's true, I have a home here in Tbilisi, I have homes in other places, and there are a few reasons I don't have a car. I'm going to explain that and give you some broader depth on this topic that I think is important for anyone who wants to be a nomad capitalist. The most basic answer to why I don't have a car is, quite frankly, I don't want one. I lived in the United States for a number of years, and if you've lived in the United States, you realize that unless you live in New York or maybe Boston or a few pockets, you are looked at as mentally ill if you don't have a car. You are like lower than low to the average person, and so you just have a car because it's part of the social expectation. It's somewhat keeping up with the Joneses, but it's also just like, I don't want to be a freak. And so I realized that. I went along with it. I lived in a particularly warm area, so I didn't really feel like walking when it was 1,000 degrees outside. But somehow when I went everywhere else in the world, I didn't want a car. I enjoyed walking. I don't take public transportation a lot. I will take taxis, I'll get car services, but when I'm just getting around the city, I enjoy being in good locations to where I just go where I need to go. It's for business, it's for pleasure, it's eating, whatever it is, I like to walk. I don't particularly enjoy the car experience. I know many people do, but as a conservative person, the idea of driving 180 kilometers an hour or 180 miles an hour, I guess, down a track or racing down a city street doesn't really appeal to me. I've test driven nice sports cars, don't really get into it. But the bigger issue, besides societal expectation being removed from my life, is that with multiple bases around the world, with constant business travel and some leisure travel, owning a car is just a real hassle. It is an obligation that, because it's a societal expectation, can be easily crossed up the list. It's one of those sacred cows that once you get out of your bubble, you realize is not really that necessary. You can just easily extricate it from your life. And I look at a car, someone I'm working with recently posted something on Instagram where he said, if I take $40,000 and I put it into emerging market investments, here's what happens to that money in 5 years. It becomes worth a lot more. And he says, to me, that's the real price of buying that $40,000 car. And a $40,000 car isn't even that nice anymore. I mean, a really nice car, you're probably looking at 6 figures. Imagine over the course of 5 years what 6 figures could add up to if invested in emerging markets. Even if you just parked it in the bank here in a country like Georgia, you'd have a lot more money. And so the reality is there are so many things in our lives that can be cut out, that can be extricated, because it's so easy to replace. I can take a taxi here for $1 or $2 and get anywhere I want to go. In a larger city, it's a little bit more expensive. That pales in comparison with the cost of owning a car and the social expectation of owning the right car. And then when I'm not here, what do I do with the car? I just let it sit around and wait for the looters, wait for the graffiti artists. What do I tell the insurance company who probably doesn't understand? You're not here full time? Where do I park it? Heck, where do I park it when I'm driving it? I like to live in city centers. I like to live in the action. Where do I do with the car? There's just so many different things that I have to do that I value my time so much. That's one of the big lessons I've learned by going overseas, is the value of my time. All the time I would spend dealing with insurance, dealing with parking, dealing with parking fines, dealing with figuring out how to get home after I've had a glass of wine because I don't want to drive. How do I get my car the next day? Dealing with the possible risks, the costs, filling up the gas tank. That's a lot of time that I can put back into my business, into enjoying life. for something I don't really enjoy that much, for something that doesn't add any utility when I can simply go out and take an Uber, take a Grab, take a Taxify, a Yandex, whatever, or just walk and be healthy and get a little cardio and see what's going on, see what's changing in the city, see what is happening in the places where I go. And so this is one of those things that most people don't think about. But I think we're seeing a lot of people, due to the decline of the middle class in many developed economies, realizing, yeah, I don't really want to own a car. It's not worth it anymore. It's not the status symbol it once was. And when you live the nomad capitalist lifestyle, you can establish your own status symbols, whether that is, stays in a really nice 5-star hotel, or a pair of Louis Vuitton shoes, or a nice bag, or whatever it is that you want. Maybe it's giving to charities. Maybe it's just more money to do good. And what's interesting is that we think we can, when we have a car, we're in control. In reality, I view it as that quote from Fight Club, where your car owns you. You don't really own the car. The car dominates your life, particularly if you live a nomad capitalist lifestyle. But the reality is, no matter what you do, who knows when that car is going to break down? Who knows when there's going to be some problem that's not only going to potentially cost you money, but it's going to cost you time and frustration and opportunity. The reality is, staying in your home country is much like owning a car, because other people control your destiny. If you're a high earner in the United States, you're only one congressional or presidential election away from your tax rate going up, and it's totally out of your control. I like to be in control. I like to know what's happening, and I know that as long as I don't get hit by a bus, I'll be able to walk around and get where I need to go. There's also a pretty high likelihood there will always be people willing to drive me places where I need to go for a reasonable fee. And I can use that time much more efficiently, sitting in the back seat, answering emails on my way to the airport, typing things on my computer, focusing on sending audio messages to my team, or doing other strategic stuff that I can't really do if I'm driving. The idea of listening to audiobooks, I listen to audiobooks, when I'm sitting around at my house drinking tea. When I'm in the car, I'm doing stuff. And so I like to make the most of that time. I like to be efficient. When I'm walking, I'm thinking, I'm strategizing, I'm brainstorming. I'm clearing my head. To me, you can't do that in a car, because you're giving up that efficiency, and you're also giving up a great sense of control. There are so many different ways where, if you're staying stuck in a culture where having a car is the thing to do, you are being penalized. You are not in control. The people around you are in control. The car's in control, the government's in control, the people who tax you are in control. You are ceding so much control by not going where you're treated best. And not only getting rid of the social expectations, but getting rid of the economic costs of living in a society that is so expensive. So, will I change my mind in the future and own a car? It's possible. For now, I'll be enjoying having other people drive me around in their car, saving a lot of money by realizing the true value of my time, getting a little healthy, and keeping an open mind to what I really need and want in life. If you want to find out more about the nomad capitalist lifestyle, subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot of new videos coming out, and make sure you head on over to nomadcapitalist.com.